We open our 2017 summer season with a program called Music for a Secret Chapel. This is a really exciting program for us because it gives us a chance to explore a new space in the beautiful confines of the Immaculate Heart of Mary Chapel at the Carmelite Monastery in Santa Fe. The program features especially William Byrd, one of the great composers of the English Renaissance. And Byrd was an English Catholic, a recusant, who refused to give up his faith despite the fact that he was working for a Protestant regime. The music is therefore intimate, tender, not written for big celebrations, not written for official functions, but rather music that draws you in, music for a very few number of singers, really meant for no audience at all, but just for those that were observing the rites at the time. Also featured on that program is music for the Sistine Chapel. The Sistine Chapel, of course, is a great, glorious venue, but it was secret in the sense that they guarded their repertoire very carefully. There were many pieces, in particular the Allegri Miserere, that the Sistine Chapel would not let out of their grasp. It took all the way until the 18th century, some 200 years after the piece was written, before Mozart attended a Holy Week ceremony in which the Miserere was written. Mozart heard it, memorized it, and wrote it down. And it's in that way that the score became available to a more general audience. Up until that point, the Sistine Chapel had held that score as their own property, as their own hidden secret. We'll perform that piece, including the 5 glorious high C's, extraordinary work that has to be heard, as well as other music for the Sistine Chapel by Victoria and Palestrina, some of the greatest composers of the Italian Renaissance. In addition to those composers, you'll also hear music of Luca Marenzio. Marenzio is an Italian Renaissance composer who wrote for another kind of secret group, the Concerto delle Donne. This was a group of virtuoso female singers who sang at all the great courts in northern Italy. The music of Concerto delle Donne was one of the great calling cards of the northern Italian courts and was one of the great prides of Mantua and of Ferrara and also of the great musical culture of Florence. In addition to all those pieces, you'll hear Gregorian chant and the extraordinary Ave Maria of Josquin. Josquin was considered the greatest composer of his time until Palestrina was to come along and usurp that title of the greatest composer of the Renaissance. But Josquin in his day was considered the most extraordinary composer, and his Ave Maria setting is considered one of the most perfect pieces of all time. A canon that passes between voices with this simple melody. That melody is then taken up in canon and shared with the other voices. Music from a Secret Chapel takes place at the Immaculate Heart of Mary Chapel at the Carmelite Monastery, the beautiful grounds up in the hills of Santa Fe. This extraordinary space is uniquely suited to this music that features everything from music that was written for English Renaissance Mass observances through the most glorious music from the Sistine Chapel in Rome. Come hear Music from a Secret Chapel this summer in Santa Fe.